White House border czar Tom Homan this morning announced that he will draw down 700 of the 3,000 law enforcement personnel in Minnesota immediately. Protests in Minnesota have continued daily since ICE agents shot and killed 2 U.S. citizens. Today, Homan acknowledged people are allowed to protest, but warned don't interfere with law enforcement.
I would implore the governor and the AG and the mayor and other political officials to urge in the most strong and urgent way to ask for calm in the community and protest. Stop impeding, stop interfering, stop violating the law, because we will arrest you.
Now, while Baltimore has not seen the kind of ICE presence experienced in Minneapolis, of course, people here, they are protesting, and neighbors are organizing resistance to ICE in their communities. So David Rokoff from the ACLU, kind enough to join us. Appreciate you being here, David. To answer some legal questions, give us some legal clarification. So we just heard from Homan. I'm asking you, what is the difference between protesting or impeding or interfering legally?
Well, I mean, before I answer that particular question, I just need to say this is a Department of Homeland Security that is engaged in rampant misconduct and violations of the law. So we can talk about what the law is, but this is an agency that isn't actually obeying the law, and that's important to understand. As to your question, the difference between protesting and violating the law. Obstruction means physical obstruction. So you can't physically obstruct officers from performing their duties, but as long as you're not physically obstructing, and you can be ordered to maintain a reasonable distance, but as long as you're not physically interfering with them, physically obstructing their performance of their duties, you are allowed to film, to protest, to shout, to carry signs, to warn others that they're around. All of those things are fully protected by the First Amendment. This is an administration that doesn't respect that, but that's the law.
That is the law, which is what we're asking you to clarify here. CBS News yesterday had an interview with the chief of police in Minneapolis, who said that one of his off-duty officers was pulled over by ICE at gunpoint and asked to show his U.S. citizenship, prove he was a citizen. First of all, is that legal? Can you ask somebody, prove you're a citizen? And if I were asked that, what would I show to prove I'm a U.S. citizen? What kind of documentation are we talking about legally?
The question sort of shows the problem. In order for ICE to, I mean, the question that the officer asked to the citizen, prove you're a citizen, because that's not what the law. In order for ICE to, or a DHS agent to stop someone, they have to have reasonable suspicion that the person is not lawfully present. That is incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to have simply by observing someone, which is why, historically in this country, we have not seen the pattern of stops that we are seeing now. Why are we seeing this pattern of stops now? Because this is an administration that is explicitly using race and ethnicity as a basis for that suspicion. That violates the Fourth Amendment, that violates the 14th Amendment. But that practice is being encouraged by this Supreme Court, which not long ago overturned lower court orders prohibiting that practice without explanation. And so that's why I say this is an administration engaged in rampant illegal behavior.
So you're saying very simply that the law says they are not allowed to pull over for no reason, and you do not have to offer citizenship proof.
They have to have a lawful basis to stop you. That's the Fourth Amendment. If they don't have that, if they're stopping you and saying, you show me that you're a citizen, they're turning the law on its head.
I see. And what would one use to prove citizenship?
Well, U.S. citizens don't have to prove their citizenship. That's why this is such a turning of the law on its head. That has never been true in this country, in the entire history of this country, that citizens have to prove their citizenship. Unfortunately, because of this practice that I talk about, where the department is using race and ethnicity as a basis for suspicion, what we see is that non-white citizens in this country are now walking around carrying their passports as proof of citizenship. That is shameful, tragic, and morally wrong. People who are not citizens but who have lawful status should carry documents that show that lawful status.
All right. Well, the law is clear, and now I guess these laws get tested. Tested in the streets and tested in the courts, ultimately. Thank you for coming in, David. Do appreciate your insight.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.